Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You're at your favorite podcast, the spot, the place where the conversations are pointed and the guests are sharp and the responses are never dull. Today we are visiting with Megan Brown. She has a very captivating story about how a very tragic experience converted her from being an atheist to a believer and a lover in all things good and God. She's going to talk to us about that. She is also the author of 3 books, and she can channel messages. So we want to hear about that and a whole lot more. Let's welcome her to the show. How are you today, Miss Megan Brown?
I'm doing so well. Thank you, April. How are you?
I can't complain about a thing. Nothing. I had a near-death experience over the weekend. I almost drowned.
Really? Oh,
Really? Yeah, I
wow.
call myself, I'm not a water enthusiast, okay, but I try. I go tubing in the Salt River in Arizona, and the
Yeah.
current changed.
Oh,
And girl, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. I had to be rescued.
oh.
But I am here to tell the tale because I, like you, are a believer. Tell us a little bit about you, your harrowing story, and how you show up in the world.
Wow. I grew up Roman Catholic, and for the first 20 years of my life, I was really trying to abide by that thought process that I was taught. And then at age 20, I was raped, and it just I didn't believe that there was a God or that there could be um, a heaven or angels or anything that I was taught growing up, because I was raped in my own home. So, I mean, I thought, okay, well, that's another violation. Check. I've had too many violations in my life. And that's it. I'm done. I'm done believing. I was so hardcore against hearing anything about anybody's belief in God for years and years. So it it was my turning point for me in that moment.
What turned it around?
Well, I one night went to bed and I started to have this really upset stomach, and it turned into this whole thing. Wound up, I was in kidney failure, and I spent 5 days in heaven. I remember walking through the clouds, and to my left, the only person waiting for me under a tree, it was like this big park. It was beautiful. And there was Jesus. And I thought,
Hmm.
I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, you really do exist." Like, I just still didn't believe that he existed until I saw him. And then I thought, wait, am I in heaven? I must be. I mean, I'm looking at Jesus. And when I said that, he smiled and opened up his arms, and it was basically a welcome, and that I could come forward and give him a hug.
Now, there's many people that have had experiences like this. Give us a brief description of what he looked like.
He was a dark skin hue. His hair was almost to his shoulders and wavy and very just he was built like, as in physically he was in good shape, as though he does yoga and weight training. I mean, I'm just saying what I know here on earth. That's how.
Good vegetarian diet.
Yeah, right? With a vegetarian diet. So he was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Because I've been to the Vatican, and it was very interesting how our guide told us that how Michelangelo painted his depiction of Jesus by his fascination with Apollo, the god. And so there has been so many different interpretations of what Jesus looked like, and for him to originally come from Africa, which is, or the continent of Africa where Israel is. I just wanted to see what your interpretation is because in my mind, he's omnipresent. He's all things. He can be a bug, he can be a flower, he can be a bird. He can transform himself into anything. But in the physical body, the human body, I wanted to see what your experience was. So carry on, continue to tell us.
Okay, so he guided me to a golden capsule where I had to meet my other guides, Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, El Moria, and Saint Germain. I didn't know who El Moria was at that point, and I had no idea who Saint Germain was at that point. And we had to go inside of this golden capsule where we all watched my life review.
Mm.
And that is so real, and it is a moment of reckoning in a sense, because you are so in touch with a reality of your soul that you are not necessarily connected to on earth. It is so raw, it is so vulnerable, it is so real, it is such a loving experience by my guides because they watched me cry, because I had to go through pain again and go through the experiences again that I'd already experienced here on earth. I had to not only feel things again, but I had to hear what the other person was thinking.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty intense. And so, what do you think the reason for that was? Was it to remind us? Was it to humble us? Was it to make us more connected to our soul contract? Why do you think that you had to go through that process?
Well, I think definitely it has to do with soul contract because it was almost like a therapy session for me. I call it heaven's therapy because as I stood, there were moments where, like, I had to relive a car accident where my best friend and her mother both died, and I broke both my legs, and I went through all of this stuff, and I had to relive that and feel that so they could see me sobbing and they could see me, throwing up. They could see me, so they would pause it. They would just pause it and let me process what was happening, and they would look at me and say, with absolute, reassurance of everything, they would say, this too shall pass. And so by the end, they asked me a question, and I believe this had to do with my future because they wouldn't let me see it and remember it here in my earthly body. But I remember them looking at me, and I wasn't happy. And they asked me, what do you think of this? And I looked at all of them and said, this too shall pass. And they said, ah, you understand. And then we moved on. And Archangel Michael and my other guides, Archangel Michael took me into his golden capsule where he spoke the Aramaic version of Psalm 91 over my soul. And it was so incredibly powerful. He was so, I mean, I wouldn't want to mess with him. I can see why he's in charge of protecting, right? Um, but he's also extremely um, filled with love and gentility. And there was no judgment. And I remember crying as I stood before him and then knelt before him. And he asked me after he'd spoken the psalm over me, I had tears coming down my cheeks. And he said, Megan, why are you crying? I looked at him and said, because I feel like such a jerk. I've called all of you, names, derogatory names. I didn't believe in any of you. I thought you were all fairy tales. And here you are being so loving, compassionate, and empathetic to me and all of these wonderful things. I feel awful for what I've said about you. And he looked and said, Megan, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to love you. Oh, well, I
Me dial back a little bit though, Megan. When before you actually made it through the pearly gates, or transition, because you didn't transition, you made a visit, but you were able to come back. What was your physical body? Were you what did the doctor say? Were you like in a coma? Did you have to be resuscitated? I just kind of want to find out, or get a gauge of what this metaphysical transformation, and um, uh, what state were you in? Do you recall?
Yes. Okay, so when I got into the hospital, I was in phenomenal physical shape. I worked out all the time. I had abs. I worked so hard for those abs on my stomach. And I remember being in such great shape that I wondered what is happening. Well, it was an autoimmune disease that took over, and the side effect to the autoimmune disease was kidney failure. And that's what I was experiencing. I had been in kidney failure for days. I had gained 43 pounds of fluid and turned gray. And a doctor told me that he thought I kept telling him and expressing the pain that I was in. And he thought, oh, you're just a drug seeker. And that's what he told me. And then I heard an instruction for the first time. And it was heaven. Now I know it was heaven, but they said, make a scene, make it big, or you won't make it out. And I made a scene. I was in a Catholic hospital. Having grown up Roman Catholic, I knew what to say. So I was very comfortable in doing that.
Wow. Wow. Were you with family members? Were you alone?
I was alone, and my husband was away working, and my son was only 4 at the time.
Mm.
So I had nobody around me. And it was very, very scary. I was in fear of dying at that point.
Wow. And so you said that you were in this state for about 5 days?
Um, well, actually, I was in this state. It would be considered a coma state for about 15 days.
Mhm.
That's Earth days. And somehow it transfers into 5 days in heaven, because those 15 days, it's like heaven it is at an incredibly high speed where it's nonstop and it's only love. There is no denseness. The speed is just, it's incredible to experience things.
From what I've read in the word, is that time is an illusion anyway.
Yes, it
There's
is.
there's no beginning, there's no end. It's infinity. So as you go through these metamorphosis of change and you come to these different realizations, how has that impacted your life now, and the work that you do, and the people that you surround yourself with, or because it's a different frequency, and everyone can't resonate with it, everyone doesn't understand it. There's people that they say, are you in church or are you at church? They're there, um, but they really don't, sometimes I think, understand the gravitas and the magnitude of really what they're experiencing and who they are worshiping. How has that changed you?
Oh, it has changed incredibly. Now, I did start to go to church again. I realized for myself, I didn't need to go to church.
Right.
But when I actually received orders from God to get a divorce, because it was so different. My then husband told me, I want you to stop talking about heaven. And I thought, what? So about 8 months later, I filed for divorce, because at one point when I was meditating one night, I heard loud and clear, just get a divorce now. And I remember it was God. And I said, but I didn't think I could get a divorce because I've been to heaven and I'm serving you and I am serving everybody in heaven. How is it that this is allowed? And he said, this is what you need in order to grow further. There was so much that was exchanged in that meditation. So I did. I filed for divorce, and it took a number of years for me to start to really feel comfortable in myself, having been an atheist and non-believer of anything that love could ever exist, now doing it by myself. in a sense. I had to just look within differently and always reflect on that which I experienced in heaven and that which I was told.
Were there
And
challenges in the marriage prior to this? I said, were there challenges in the marriage prior to this?
oh yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, he didn't have to tell me this, but it took him 4 days to come to my side. I didn't have him for the first 4 days, and then he left again and said that he had to go back to work. So I I thought, what? Okay, maybe he can't deal with trauma. Like I'd had a lot of trauma in my life. So I thought, okay, well, some people take a longer time.
Right.
And that's where I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but it was as though I was a toy that broke and he threw me in the closet and said, I don't want to play anymore.
Mm, that's
So yeah, so he didn't want to play and he didn't want to participate, and that's okay. I'm not even angry. I'm
right.
not
Right. Because
angry about
it's not his truth. It's
no.
not it's not his journey, and it's not his walk. And a lot of times people think that, I'm on this spiritual walk. You have a soulmate. I have a soulmate. But what I understand is that I also have an independent journey. As we spoke, there's a soul contract that I must fulfill, not necessarily my partner. You are blessed if you have someone to walk alongside of you. You are enlightened if you are able to carry this forth on your own. So now that you are a single mother with a small child, recovering from this autoimmune disease and having this spiritual realization and revelation, I'm sure that your emotions are all over the place.
They were. They absolutely were. But the core of what I felt inside of me had changed so drastically. It was a 180. I was before my near death experience, I still held on to the past and the anger of for many reasons of things that had happened to me in my life. And I held on to resentment, I held on to sadness. I had all of these things that I was holding on to. And my body, because it was an autoimmune disease, and this is one of the things that I'm working toward helping others understand, is it's very important how you speak to your body, because your body is going to take it on. And mine did. And it's not that it turns on you, but it does. It technically turns on you. And you have to turn your thoughts around. And this was very important that I learned this, because what I have been diagnosed with is TTP-HUS, and it's stress induced. So I needed to learn how to think differently about life and how I was participating in life. So rather than life is happening to me, I'm just rolling along with it. Of course, I've had emotions, throughout my divorce. That was very emotional. But at the same time, I knew inside of me that God and heaven were with me and they were working next to me, through me, and I was meditating every day with them. Every single day. I knew they were with me.
So
And
now guides are with you. They're helping you, um, for the lack of a better term, cope and adjust to this new realization. In the process of all of that, you were able to document it and record it into books. Tell us a little bit about your literary work.
okay, well, as I was in heaven, sitting at God's table when I met God, then Jesus does sit to his right. I didn't believe that because that's the Catholic thing that I'd heard. And then it was me, and then Archangel Michael, and then 26 other archangels, Melchizedek, Goddess. I mean, there were so many souls sitting at the table. But within the first 5 minutes, God announced to everybody. I didn't even know it was God. I mean, there's a funny story there, but it's in my book. And he said, Megan will be going back. And he looked at me and said, and you will be writing a book. I said, but I've never written a book before. He said, I don't care. And I said, okay. but what do you want me to write about? He said, you'll figure it out.
Wow.
So I got orders from God to write the book about my near death experience. And he said, don't leave anything out.
Mm, mm, mm. Where's the book? Let's see it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that one I titled A Catalyst, My 5 Days in Heaven.
Wow, that is incredible. And you were able to write about your experience and recall those things. And that's very powerful. Sometimes I can't remember what I had for lunch,
I know. I
much
know.
less this. But when it's something that insightful and impactful, you can't forget it. So now you write this book and you are re entering into mainstream lifestyle. You're you're on this high and you're talking about God and you're talking about heaven, and that is, you're preaching. What are others saying? Other people that know you outside of the husband that is despondent, your child that can probably only embrace and understand so much. But what about other family members? I mean, you had, I'm sure, siblings or girlfriends. How did they receive you? Did they shun themselves away from you? Were they welcoming? Did they listen? What was that experience like?
Well, they know something has happened to me because now I talk about God and none of them are churchgoers. So some of us grew up Catholic, some of us didn't. And they know that I have had an experience. They definitely know. And some friends have fallen away. Some family members have fallen away, and that's okay. But what I have learned is I can share, and I love to talk about it when I'm asked. And if people want to know, I will absolutely tell them. I won't throw myself at anybody and say, you need to believe this, you need to believe this. And you don't. However, I should step back here and say, I do throw myself at people and say, you need to love yourself. You need to treat others with kindness. You need to love. And this is where God and heaven want us to be on this planet. They want us to behave with kindness, authenticity, integrity. They want us to nurture one another. They want us to listen and acknowledge one another. There is no division in heaven. There is no division. There is no separate anything.
Not even a lunch line?
Well, the good news is that you're not hungry in heaven. So, I mean, I had bread and wine. I remember that night, but in heaven, but I don't remember sitting down and having meals. It wasn't necessary. It was great.
Well, your soul is full.
True.
So,
Yeah.
so it's different with that. Did your physical composure change when you came back? Some people say that, the way that they physically look, their hair, their eyes, their skin, they have a heightened sense of hearing, their taste buds have changed. Did those things happen to you as well?
Well, some things happened. I mean, I had trauma to the body. I was in the hospital for 8 weeks. I became paralyzed. I was on so many medications, and going through kidney failure, severe case. And so my hair started to fall out. So I just cut it all short for years, which was like, I didn't realize. I was like, okay, whatever, because I only had long hair in my life. And then it was just hair. So I donated that hair, by the way, to help Locks of Love. I'll put that out there. And it did change my body. I have not felt the same. I I acclimated I've had to acclimate to the new normal physically. I don't have that energy that I used to have. I did start hearing messages from heaven and I didn't realize what it was. So it's like psychic abilities that come in to some who've had near death experiences. And I started hearing messages and I'm thinking, why am I hearing this? And I would check with these people who I knew and I thought, and one lady, she said, how did you know that? And I said, well, this is the message that I'm getting for you.
Hmm.
So that was interesting. And then after I started doing this for a living, I would get visuals. I could feel. I could sometimes taste or
Mhm.
smell what it was
I have
having
I
each
have that
individual.
to
You?
almost yeah, I do to almost to a fault. I can smell sickness when someone is sick. And when things happen in my life, or if there's something that I want to manifest, I can taste it on my tongue.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I say too. Wow. And I didn't realize that it was a gift until I was connecting the dots and noticing that this would always happen to me at this time. And I would tell people, I said, are you're not doing good? I could, I can smell sickness, or and I can smell people's auras,
Really?
energies around people. Yeah, it's
Wow.
different. We'll talk about it offline, but it's very different. So I understand. And I looked in the Bible and I said, well, and I can speak light language. So didn't see it listed as one of the gifts. And I was like, oh God, I've got an enhancement. But you have to be careful with these things, and how they are received and perceived. Because people think you 5150, girl. They think you crazy. And they don't think that there are angels or people with spiritual gifts or awakening that walk among us.
Right.
All of them are not in this physical form as what we call human beings. There's a lot of going on. I hear things. I have, conversations. I'm visited by spirits. And we have to be careful because now we are an open vessel. And all things in this universe are not good, Megan. And we have to be, we have to keep it 100. We are protected by the light, but the darkness is going to come. How do you shield yourself?
I know who I am. I'm love. And I know that I am a servant of heaven. So I know I am protected. I pray every day. I I know who I am. And that's the thing. Know that you are love. I got this interesting very powerful message about a week and a half ago while I was meditating. And heaven told me that every one of us is an angel that comes to this world. When we are born, all we are is this ball of love. Okay. We are such a perfection of love the moment we are born. And unfortunately, how we are raised and in the belief systems that we are born into, this changes the course for most of us.
But
Okay.
what is a pivotal um, point of contention is, when are we born? I mean, we look at people with the, just throwing this out there, with the right to choose. Is it at the point of conception? Because once the sperm meets the ovum, the first thing that happens is a heartbeat. Is that when you're born? Or is it when you're traveling through the portal and you land here on earth in a physical form? So people will banter back and forth with that, figuring what is right and what is wrong. I think, and I know that God makes no mistakes. We are all perfect, perfectly imperfect. And we go through this journey through what we call life, how we are raised, how we process, and how we deliver, who we are, what we believe, and how we treat others. And we are, I don't want to say judged, I think we're assessed, because God is going to love us. I don't think when you get to the pearly gates that you're there to be punished. I think you're there to be assessed. What did you do? That maybe there's a conversation. Was there a conversation? Were you able to justify some of your actions? Or were you just dictated to and said, this is what you didn't do right. You could have done this better. We're going to send you back, and maybe you have an opportunity to correct that. What was your experience in that?
Well, as I was in my life review, I remember them asking me why I made the choice and in certain circumstances, or how, for instance, after my car accident or being violated as a child by family members, how is it that I felt? There was so much fear that I felt. And that fear is what I carried through my life, not even consciously aware of it. And so I believe there are so many in our world who are holding on to a fear. And there is such an opportunity for each one of us, as Heaven told me recently, to look at everyone as being yourself, as being an angel from heaven,
Mhm.
and literally acknowledging one another as being heaven sent. Because our job on this planet is to be love and to keep that frequency of love alive on this planet. That is what our sole purpose is, in addition to being our authentic self.
Well, that's one of the hardest things um, that we are tasked to do.
Yes,
And 100% transparency is giving unconditional love. People throw that out as a buzzword or a coined phrase. But to love unconditionally, because I'm going to tell you, they're going to pull me to the side. My love has conditions. There are certain things that I can't, I'm not willing, I'm not saying I can't, to open myself up to and just say, okay, I would not bother you. I wouldn't hinder you. I wouldn't hurt you. I wouldn't ridicule you, but to give you what I know as 100% agape love, God's love, I have to work at it. I really have to work at it, and people say, oh, I have unconditional love and I don't judge and this, that, and the other. Well, I don't believe them because my judgments are my boundaries. They are my life learnings. They are my way of editing and filtering based upon the experience and the information that I have. That's all I can go by until I'm exposed to something else, like you were. You were an atheist at one time. You believed one thing growing up. You were taught a religious doctrine. You had adversity that did not line up. And then you had a revelation. So there's ebbs and flows in our life. And we
absolutely.
are here and they're teachable moments. That's just my perspective on it. So for me to say that I don't judge, and I'm not saying all my judgments are bad, some judgments are great and good, but it is a way for me to process and step back and think, see, you know what, I don't just go along to get along. I've got to figure this out. So I appreciate your honesty and your transparency and all that, because it takes work. Now
It
you are currently teaching a course, and it's called The Structure of Love.
Yes, it is. God said to me in heaven, acceptance is synonymous with love.
Hmm.
And that is so huge, believe it or not. Acceptance across the board is what it means.
See,
Okay.
see that you have to work with me on that because, again, going along to get along. I tolerate, I tolerate, but I cannot say that I am a person that is 100% able to accept certain things. And maybe that's ignorance. Ignorance is just not knowing, you
So
know.
what I'm talking about in terms of acceptance, besides accepting another person, is I am accepting what has happened to me in my life.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
am accepting everything as having been a gift from heaven that has given me the opportunity to grow soulfully, emotionally, and psychologically in ways that I couldn't have been taught here on this planet. I had to go through what I went through in heaven to understand what it is that I'm saying and to understand the word love as being going within. Literally, love is multi-layered. Love what you feel. I love music. I love my dog. I love my child, but they're all different layers of love. I love you for what you do, for who you are. Okay. I don't know you, but I still love you. I can still send you uh, the happiness that I wish for myself. I wish for you.
Mhm.
So this is this is what I am teaching is how I call myself an advocate for love. I want people to learn to go within themselves and really understand that to just push through what is difficult in accepting about what's happened to them. So I've been raped. I've been sexually abused. I've gone through, traumas of other kinds, including death. Okay. In that car accident that I was involved in. And so there's a grieving process that takes place. However, all of this, everything was a gift from love. And the reason I can say from love is because God Himself said to me, I asked Him while I was sitting at His table with everybody sitting there, I said, God, why has my life been so difficult up to now? And He looked at me and He said, Megan, you chose 3 lives in one. I said, what do you mean? I chose 3 lives in one. I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, you did not want to reincarnate. Okay, reincarnation's real? I questioned God. I didn't grow up with reincarnation. That was not a part of the ideology that was being taught to me. And he said, it's absolutely real. He said, you did not want to go back, so you chose to rectify previous lives in this life, in this one life. And then I said, I don't understand what you mean. He literally pulled out a piece of paper, and it could have been 2 or 3 pieces of paper. But what he showed me, I remember this one piece of paper where there were check boxes, and I had to check off with him and sign before him, before being born on this planet. I had to sign an agreement of the experiences, the major experiences that I would be going through. Okay. And I had to agree to this. The key point to understand here is between these big pivotal experiences that happened in my life, and this goes across the board for anybody, choice and free will. You choose how you want to do things. God's not going to tell you what to do. He's going to say, okay, that's where you were at. I'm meeting you on your journey.
Wow.
And yeah, it's very profound and it's beautiful. And it is so important to spread this message and to teach people. And this is what I am passionate about now as a result of this specific near-death experience.
Well, tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how people can get in contact with you to explore love.
Okay, so I have a website, conversationswithmegan.com. And people can go in there, they can see podcasts, they can see that I do channeling where I listen for messages when I connect with the individual from heaven for them to help them spiritually evolve. Now, I have worked with Muslims, I have worked with Jews, I have worked with Catholics, born again Christians, and atheists. I will work with anybody because love is love. So heaven loves everyone. It is not a religious experience, although I do talk to God and I do talk to heaven and I open with a prayer with the individual's permission. But I also offer a course and they can look on my website and see that.
Wow. Well, I am intrigued. I really am. And thank you for being so open, honest, and vulnerable. Because again, people are going to edit,
Just,
filter, and process and
yes.
and doubt.
Yeah.
That's just who we are as human beings until you can smell it, taste it, feel it, and live it. And we have been fortunate enough to have some of those experiences, and I just commend you. Tell my brains also how to get a copy of your book. Is that also on the website? That's
Oh,
at
brains. I love you. So, all of us brains are working together on this planet. We all want to be loved. And yes, my books, Love's Recipes, which I wrote through my divorce as instructions by God in heaven to write about love every day. So I did. Love's Recipes, A Catalyst, which is about my near-death experience, and the book Death is a compilation of about 13 near-death experiencers who put their personal stories in a book together called Death. So yes, you will see those on my website and they're all available on Amazon.
Well, we are going to put all of your contact information. I'm trying to find my postcard here. We're going to put all of your contact information at the back of the interview. Brains, check it out. You don't know what you don't know, and you haven't been there, and you don't know how to make our life better unless we explore options and choices and have conversations with people. If you're at a certain place and you're stuck, maybe you need some encouragement. Maybe you need an awakening. Maybe you had a bad experience with traditional religion and you need some spirituality because they are two different things. Explore them. Don't limit yourself. Again, this is a big world with a lot of opportunities. Thank you so much, Megan. I need you to go in, Brains, love, like, share, and subscribe to us here on the Edge. There are over 2,000 episodes of great information. Spread the light, spread the love, become aware. Thank you so much for being with me, Megan. You're the best.
Oh, thank you for having me, April. This was amazing. And thank you, Brains, for listening to us. I love all of you, and I wish you love.